Deep in the heart of the Philippine jungle, where vines twisted like ancient snakes and the air hung heavy with rain, a lone soldier crouched beneath the shadows of the trees. His rifle was polished, his uniform torn but clean, his eyes alert. The year was 1945. The world had moved on, but for him, the war had not. His name was Hiroo Onoda, a lieutenant of the Imperial Japanese Army, and he was about to disappear into legend. When Japan surrendered in August 1945, the world rejoiced. Cities celebrated, soldiers returned home, and nations scarred by years of bloodshed began to heal. But not everyone heard the news, and even fewer believed it. For Onoda, stationed deep in the forests of Lubang Island, the idea that Japan had surrendered was unthinkable. His final orders were clear: you are to carry on the mission, disrupt enemy activity, and under no circumstances surrender or take your own life. It may take 3 years, it may take 5, but whatever happens, we will come for you. Those words became his truth, his religion, his destiny. So, while the world celebrated peace, Onoda vanished into the wilderness, carrying with him a rifle, a few grenades, and an oath that would define the rest of his life. With 3 other soldiers, he built hidden camps, learned to live off the land, hunted wild animals, and stole food from nearby villages. To the locals, they were ghosts, jungle spirits who raided granaries and vanished by dawn. The war was long over, but for these men, it had never ended. Leaflets dropped from planes announced Japan's surrender. Newspapers were left in the forests, radios were set near their hiding spots, voices called out through megaphones, all urging them to come out. But Onoda refused to believe. He thought it was an American trick. Propaganda. A psychological trap. He told his men, the enemy will stop at nothing to make us surrender. We will not fall for it. And so, they fought shadows for years, ambushing patrols, burning supplies, and defending a war that had already faded into history. One by one, his comrades fell. Some were killed in skirmishes with the local police. Others surrendered, believing at last that the war had ended. But Onoda, disciplined, loyal, and unyielding, stayed behind. The jungle became his kingdom and his cage. His boots rotted away, replaced by makeshift sandals. His uniform became threadbare, patched again and again until it was more memory than cloth. But every morning, he polished his rifle. Every night, he listened to the sounds of the forest as if they were the footsteps of an approaching enemy. Years passed. The world changed. New nations rose. The atomic bomb had already rewritten history. The Cold War began. Man had even walked on the moon. Yet somewhere, in the dense green silence of Lubang, a Japanese soldier still patrolled his post, waiting for orders that would never come. By the 1960s, Hiroo Onoda was a myth. Japanese newspapers printed stories about the soldier who never returned. Expeditions were launched to find him, teams shouting his name through loudspeakers, but he never emerged. In his mind, these were enemy tricks, attempts to deceive him. In 1959, Japan officially declared him dead. But deep in the jungle, Onoda lived, surviving on bananas, coconuts, and whatever he could steal. He wrote reports in his worn notebook, recording what he believed were military victories, always signing them, Lieutenant Onoda, still at his post. Then came 1972, 27 years after the war. A young Japanese explorer named Norio Suzuki set out on an extraordinary mission. He told his friends, I'm going to look for 3 things, a panda, a yeti, and Lieutenant Onoda. Everyone laughed. But Suzuki was serious. He arrived in the Philippines and trekked deep into the jungle, searching for a ghost. And one day, miraculously, he found him. Standing before him was a man in tattered uniform, rifle still shining from care, eyes cold and sharp. Suzuki bowed deeply and said, Onoda-san, the war is over. Japan surrendered in 1945. Please, you can come home now. But Onoda shook his head. No. Japan cannot have surrendered. The war will not end until my commanding officer orders me to stop. Suzuki was stunned. This man had lived nearly 3 decades fighting a war that no longer existed. Suzuki returned to Japan with proof, photographs and Onoda's story. The government was astonished. They tracked down his former commander, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, who had long retired and was now running a small bookstore. When he heard that his soldiers still stood guard after 29 years, Taniguchi was overwhelmed with guilt. He agreed to return to the Philippines. March 9, 1974. Deep in the jungle, in a small clearing, the 2 men met. The major, now gray-haired and frail, stood before his former lieutenant. Onoda, still in uniform, saluted sharply, tears filling his eyes. Taniguchi read aloud the imperial order. In accordance with the command of the emperor, all military activities are to cease immediately. Onoda listened, trembling. Then, slowly, he removed the cartridges from his rifle, folded his hands, and bowed deeply. 29 years after the end of World War II, Hiroo Onoda finally surrendered. When he stepped out of the jungle, reporters and crowds were waiting. Cameras flashed. The man who had missed 3 decades of history stared in silence at the world that had left him behind. Cars, airplanes, televisions, things that didn't exist when he went to war, now surrounded him. "I was sorry I had done nothing for Japan," he said quietly, "but I was glad I could finally stop fighting." He returned to Japan a national hero, pardoned for his actions during those long years in hiding. Yet despite the praise, Onoda felt out of place. Japan was no longer the country he had fought for. The empire was gone. The values had changed. In his heart, he felt he had returned to a foreign land. "I felt," he said later, "like I had been left behind by my own nation." Unable to adjust to modern life, he moved to Brazil and became a cattle rancher. The open fields reminded him of the freedom he once knew in the jungle. He married, worked the land, and lived quietly. Yet the discipline never left him. He woke early, followed routines, and kept his possessions in perfect order, just like a soldier. Years later, he returned to Japan to start a survival school, teaching young people how to live with courage and resilience. "Life," he said, "is about endurance. You must never give up." When asked if he regretted staying in the jungle for so long, Onoda simply smiled and replied, "No. A soldier must follow his orders. I lived by my oath." He never blamed his government, his commanders, or fate. He believed loyalty was the highest virtue, even when misplaced. His faith had carried him through hunger, disease, loneliness, and time itself. In 2014, at the age of 91, Hiroo Onoda passed away. Japan mourned not only a man, but an entire era, the last living echo of a generation built on honor and obedience. His story became a mirror, forcing people to ask, what is duty? What is loyalty? And when does devotion become blindness? For nearly 3 decades, he fought a war that wasn't real, yet his courage, his endurance, and his faith were very real. He had become both a symbol of devotion and a tragedy of misunderstanding. To some, he was a hero, a man of unbreakable spirit. To others, he was a relic of a time when men were willing to die for orders they didn't question. But to everyone, he was unforgettable. The jungle where he once hid is quiet now. Trees have grown over his camps. The rifle he once polished rests in a museum. But his story, his impossible, heartbreaking story, still echoes through history. The story of a soldier who kept fighting, not because he loved war, but because he couldn't imagine a world without it. They say wars end when treaties are signed. But for some men, wars end only when the heart finally accepts peace. For Hiroo Onoda, peace came 29 years late. And when it came, it wasn't victory or defeat, it was simply release. As he once said, near the end of his life, "We are born to fulfill our duties. Mine just lasted a little longer than most." And so, deep in the silence of history, the jungle still remembers the footsteps of a soldier who refused to surrender, the man who didn't know the war was over.